What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Planet Soccer Podcast. I'm here, Reed Simpson, in Fort Worth, Texas. That's Dylan in the shockingly average state of Michigan.
Just the University of Michigan football team. They're shockingly average.
Yeah. If for those of you who don't know, we talked about it, I think, on the last episode. I think it hasn't been released yet where I mentioned TCU playing for the national championship. Go Frogs. That's our American sports dialogue out of the way. There you go. Throw up the Frogs, Dylan. Attaboy. We're all feeling horny for the Toads right now. So really good week of American football. But today, getting back on track, we're going to talk about the English Premier League. Back to the basics for us here at Planet Soccer. It's our bread and butter. We're actually recording 2 episodes tonight. Y'all don't know that because y'all aren't here. We're going to talk a little bit about the whole United States men's national team situation later. But for right now, we're going to talk about the games that were over the weekend and then these midweek match day Premier League games. So I told Dylan off air before we started that I'm going to do something a little different. It's going to be a challenge to him and a little bit of a challenge to me too. But I think as the moderator, I've kind of gotten used to not saying as much and moving on. Dylan, I'm giving you 60 seconds. No, I'm going to give you 45 seconds for every Premier League team. We're going to go down the table, just real boring, down the table. We have 45 seconds to talk about each team and what these past 2 games meant for each of them. You think we can do that?
Yeah, I'm going to have to pull up the table so I know our order. Let me get that pulled up. Okay. All right. I have that ready. I have that ready. I have my notes ready. They're not going to be in order, but let's run it.
All right, let me pull up my stopwatch real fast.
Should get it on screen.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We've got Arsenal. Clock starts now. Arsenal, 2 games. A draw versus Newcastle yesterday and a win versus somebody over the weekend. I forgot.
Newcastle game, they couldn't score. Newcastle kind of weathered the storm early. Arsenal's been known to come out hot and heavy. Newcastle kind of weathered that storm and were better for it as the game went on. Questionable. No penalty call late in the game that got explained if you like the explanation. But overall, solid week again from Arsenal. Did everything they really had to do to not slip up.
Yeah, Arsenal dropping their first point in the Premier League. It's been a while. I think their loss to Brighton, 3-1 loss to Brighton was the last points they dropped in the Premier League. So shout out to Newcastle taking points from Arsenal. And that's 45 seconds. Moving on, Manchester City. A really just flat out bad result against Everton over the weekend, dropping points, and then kind of a weird win versus Chelsea today, if you want to call it that. Dylan, I think you watched the game. What do you think about Man City?
First half week? The Everton match speaks for itself. Can't drop points against Everton. Today's match was a little weird. They took a really odd formation. Cancelo and was down the right side, more in midfield. It was really weird in the first half. Made substitutions in the second half, and then they looked more like Man City. Still feel like they kind of have to force stuff through Holland a little bit more than you'd like to see from a top side, but they'll be fine. It was a weird first half, but I think it was a tactical error, I guess, if you ever see that from Pep or as close as you see from Pep.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure out their Holland balance, I think. And I think Pep can absolutely do it, but that will be something they have to look at for sure. That was 53 seconds. That's my bad. We're moving on to Newcastle United. Dylan, I want to ask you a question right now.
Yes.
Gun to your head. Is Newcastle making the Champions League?
I did a whole lot of research. I'll get into it later in our mid-season preview on why I think we at least have a good chance, and I'll be disappointed if we don't. Don't have a lot to say on this last week. 2 good defense.
No goals scored
against either, though. Great defense against 2 pretty chaotic teams at times. Yep. So I'd like to see goals, but Isak's coming back. We'll be fine on the goal front.
I feel like Leeds always just gets a chaotic 1 every game, and y'all didn't allow that to happen. And then you stifled what I think either first or second best attack in the league in Arsenal. So I know the rest of the league thanks you for taking points off of Arsenal, and y'all have shown up against the big team so far this year. So props. 54 seconds. Moving on. We've got Manchester United. I saw a stat Eric Ten Hag has a better winning percentage through like his first 25 games than Arteta, Klopp, Pep, all that. And yeah, it's a little bit deceiving, but maybe it's also not. I don't know. How do you feel about Man United right now?
They're
They're
hot. I
hot,
mean,
but I feel like they got a little lucky with their weekend
against
win?
Wolves, the 1-0.
Yeah,
Frankly, I didn't
yeah.
watch either of those, so I don't really have a ton to say on them. They're hot. They're not dropping points in matches they really should be winning, and they're. I mean, a 3-0 against Bournemouth is a very solid number to put up. 3-0 against anybody. So continuing to stay hot, but didn't watch either of these matches, so don't have a ton to speak on.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that Manchester United is undefeated since the departure of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Coincidence?
So good for them.
Not.
I think not. I think not. Moving on to 5th place, Tottenham Hotspur. Just a really Tottenham Hotspur week, if we're being honest. A 2-0 loss. I think it was at home to Villa. Maybe.
So.
I don't remember. That's really bad for me. And then a 4-0 just drubbing away to Palace. Whew. Getting all my fixtures mixed up here. Palace is a tough place to win, and they had a very Tottenham Hotspur first half and came out and put 4 in the back of the net in the second half. Sonny got his goal. Kane got 2. Yeah. It was a frustrating game for him to that point, but he finally got it. If Spurs are going to compete for the Champions League, Son has to take this.
Yeah, he's got to
keep going. We can't have another 5 games where he
every time
he
scores, I'm like, all right, he's breaking through, and then goes on a cold streak. So yeah, I agree. I really think we kind of need to see it continue from him, but it's nice to see him get one.
Yeah. Yep. All right, moving on. Liverpool
Liverpool doing Liverpool things again, man.
Yeah.
Did you catch? Did you actually get to catch either of these matches?
I didn't.
I watched part of the Brentford game, like in the background of doing stuff around the house, and
I watched the extended highlights.
So fun, man. We'll get into Brentford more in a little bit, but Liverpool. I mean, Nunez had a stinker of a performance. I kind of defend him sometimes, but he laid a decent size egg in that one. And then it looks like they just kind of, I didn't catch the Leicester game. Looks like they just kind of took care of business at home. And yeah, I think one was an own goal. So you could argue it's a 1-1, but good for them.
2 were both goals.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's funny. So they still, they got 1 goal in 2 games against 2.
I started the clock a little late on Liverpool. So I have a couple more seconds, but I'm going to say, like, with Darwin Nunez, how many times are we going to allow him to get into good positions and then not score? Like at some point, it's like, dude, come on. Like, we can't defend you any more than this. Like, yes, you're getting into good positions. He's missed something like 14 big chances this year. By far the most in the Premier League. So we hinted at on last week's pod, Cody Gakpo, replacement, insurance. They're going to need goals out of him. So that is Liverpool. Next is Fulham. I lost my standings. Who's after Liverpool? Fulham. Look at Fulham, man. Look at Fulham. Man. Here for it. What did you see out of Fulham this week?
2 solid wins. Took care of business against a poor, albeit poor, Southampton team, but it was a win they kind of needed. Started off with a win after the break. It was good to continue that, and then a win at Leicester is fantastic. Mitrovic getting another one who has been proven all doubters or naysayers at the beginning of the year wrong. He's been fantastic, but I do think a lot of their offense does still kind of hinge on him. So I think if they want to flirt upper half of the table or Europa League, Conference League, they might have to go get some more goal scoring or just stand put and have a great mid-table season for a recently promoted side.
Fulham, go out and spend $40 million on somebody, baby. Go challenge for Europa League. Screw it. I mean, screw
it. Like,
Cottage
for Europa League would be electric, especially got that new side finish.
Absolutely.
Sign me
up. Fulham, pretty streaky team so far this year. They dropped 4 before the break. They're 3-0 to start after the break. So, they're creeping into that point range where they're almost guaranteed relegation. If you look at previous seasons, how many points you need, they're not going to get relegated. But with a newly promoted team, you always have to kind of look at that line. Next is Chelsea. No, it's not Chelsea. We're still not at Chelsea, folks. It is Brighton. Talk about a yin and yang team. I mean, loss, win, loss, win. And when they look good, they look real good, which they looked real good against Everton, but everybody looks good against Everton. So what did you see
Yeah,
out of them this
they're a
week?
side that for some of the game put up a little bit of a fight against Arsenal. It was a game we were actually recording during. They brought it to 3-2. Or
Oh,
no, I'm
yeah, we
sorry, they
were.
brought it to, yeah, I think they had it at 3-2 and then gave one up, and then it looked like it was going to be 4-3 later on, but the goal was waved off. So we were recording, so I didn't watch it in full, but it looked like they were hanging with and fighting tough against Arsenal. So that's good to see out of them, because they're one of those teams that you said is kind of yin and yang. They seem like they could be a team that threatens, and then they go on a little bit of a stinker. So seeing them have a productive loss was kind of nice to see, if losses can be nice. And then I believe they obviously, like you said, dominated Everton on the road. So good week for them overall. It's tough when you have to play Arsenal, but it was a good week overall.
Yeah, I think with Brighton, it's going to be real interesting to see what they do this window, because they've got a couple guys who are pretty dang sought after, especially McAllister. We'll see what they do with him, but I mean they're sitting up there. I mean, good for them. Even after they've played better than Chelsea has since Graham Potter left. So win a minute on Brighton, but they deserve it. They deserve it. Still not at Chelsea, folks. Let's talk
Love
about
this
Brentford.
team. Love this
Love
team.
this
This
team.
is
Right?
like,
Very similar to
yeah.
Fulham to me, like in the way I feel about them. What'd you
I
see?
mean, knocked off Liverpool, as we already kind of talked about. So that was awesome.
Love it. We always
Always
love
love
that.
that. And then West Ham, who we'll get there, and you can bring it up as we creep our way down the table. Your favorite text I've probably sent recently. They're a team that I don't think anybody expected them to be where they're at. But it's still a good win. Anytime you go on the road anywhere in the Premier League and get a win, it's nice. When you get it against such an expensive club, it's nice, even if their stadium is atrocious and they have bubbles and it's not an intimidating place to play.
At least
Yeah,
it's not
right.
their
The
stadium.
city stadium that they're borrowing on match days.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, Brentford, it makes me feel a whole lot better about Tottenham's draw versus Brentford on Boxing Day, watching them play the last 2 weeks, or really last 4 days, because these two match weeks were so compact. Brentford just doing what Brentford seems to be doing since they came up into the Premier League, and just, they're kind of giant killers, if you will. I mean, they play a good style of soccer, and Frank knows what he's doing. So it's Thomas Frank, not Frank Lampard. That's Thomas Frank. I'm getting that right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Hope so.
I had
Yeah,
to
hope
do a
so.
double take.
I know, me too. All right, let's talk about mid-table Chelsea. 10th place Chelsea. Chelsea, a team that has now lost 3 out of their last 5.
Love it.
Woo.
And
rough times.
The other 2 out of those 5 were a win against Bournemouth, whoop-de-doo, and a draw at Forest. Yikes. So it's not like even those other 2 results were anything to write home about. I did not watch the Forest-Chelsea game. Honestly, I didn't think I would have to invest time on New Year's Day to watch that. Didn't really cross my mind to watch it. But they got a draw, so it sucks to drop points like that if you're Chelsea. And then today, honestly, I will give them some credit. They looked very good in the first half against Man City. However, as I said, City came out in a weird, unusual formation that looked like it just didn't work for them. As soon as they switched formations, Man City was on the front foot. Chelsea pushed back a little at the end and had some fight in them, but it was fight after they had subbed off Kukureya and Aubameyang. All these players that they've been spending money on all came off. Bunch of young guys, Conor Gallagher's, the likes went in and they looked better. Not a good sign.
Dylan, is Graham Potter going to work at Chelsea?
I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like it. I think, yeah, I don't know. Today's substitutions, I was like, all right, that's kind of unique. I don't know how many managers would sub off those high-valued players for 18-year-olds who had never started a game in the Premier League in a game against City at home. But he had the courage, I suppose, to do it, and it did make the team look better. So props to him for that. But, I mean, all this money spent, any manager would have a short leash, even if it wasn't all his players.
Yeah. Moving on to Aston Villa. Villa team that really pissed me off this weekend as a Tottenham fan. Man, it was a really bad performance from Spurs, but a decent performance from Villa. I mean, they scored a banger. It was a solid win, and they didn't have Emi Martinez. I don't even know who their goalkeeper was. I remember just seeing on Twitter, like, man, Spurs are losing to this guy in goal. And it was something stupid like John Ryan or something just really bland. I don't know. Villa. What do we think about Villa?
I didn't watch the Tottenham game. I did watch part of their game against Wolves on whatever day that was. Monday, Tuesday, whatever it was. No, it was Wednesday. And I want to know how they gave up a goal to Wolves. Who gives up goals to Wolves? I mean, what are we doing? Overall, though, they fought back, got a draw out of it. It's not what they wanted to see, especially after coming off that high of beating Spurs 2-0, I believe, at Tottenham. So came off a high, a little bit of a letdown, some points they probably should have picked up that they left on the table. But overall, you tell Spurs fans they come out of that 2-match set with 4 points, or Villa fans, they come out of there with 4 points. Yeah. They're probably pretty happy. So overall, good couple of days for them.
Yeah, obviously they've hired their new coach recently, and I saw that the meme of Bane and Batman. It's like I was born, or you were born in the dark. I was molded by it, or something like this. And it was Unai Emery talking to Conte, and it was like you were born with 5 at the back. I was molded by it, or something like that. It was really funny. I wish I didn't screw that up so bad, but you get the point. Moving on, we are where my standings go. Crystal Palace. I mean, who knows what you're going to get from them on a weekly basis? 2 red cards, then a win, then a 4-0 drubbing. Who freaking knows?
Yeah, I'll kind of give you my time on this one, because you had some pretty pointed thoughts about Palace based off of your game against them. So what did you kind of gather from that match, more from the Palace side than the Spurs side?
I think that Palace, kind of similar to Brighton, obviously very different positions in the table right now, but they're another team that really has a lot of guys they got to figure out what to do with. And I think they're in a position where I watched that team play yesterday, and I'm like, there's just there is fight, but there's not, like, even if they do break through, there's always that feeling of the potential to regress back to what we saw yesterday. It's almost like they just need to get the money on their guys, bring in these new, I love the coach. Yeah. I love the manager. I think he's fantastic, and I think he can really do something with a Brighton type of roster. But they've got Elise, they've got Zaha, kind of these almost superstar type, really sought after players that I'm not saying they hold them back attitude or play style wise or anything.
You wouldn't be the first person to say it if that's what you were saying, though. I mean, that's something I've gathered on Palace so far, is that is kind of like Zaha's work rate.
It feels like they almost just need a fresh start.
Zaha's work rate has been a question lately. So it will be kind of interesting, because I believe he's got a club contract option for a year after this, or he might be straight to a free. Is he straight?
I think he's straight out this summer.
So do they try and get something out of him while they can? I think they would be smart to. But yeah, we'll see. They're a fun team when they're on, but holy cow, is it painful when they're not. Now, you could say that about a lot of teams, including our next one, who I believe is Leicester, right?
Yeah. Leicester City, a team that was really on the up and up heading into the World Cup, and dropping 3 straight games.
We were both so high and excited.
Is James Maddison playing again?
He'll never play again for Leicester. That's my theory. I mean, I think they've given themselves not a lot of wiggle room, but I think they're 3 or 4 points up off of relegation. I think they will either let him or Tielemans go. I think it'll be whoever they get the better offer for, like that makes not more money. Obviously, that would be,
they're 2 points off of relegation.
I thought they were 3 or 4, but either way, it's not a lot. But I think they're not in the cellar. I think they will likely use some of that money to then go improve their roster elsewhere, specifically the back line, which has been a problem for them all year. So it might not be Maddison. I think for value, it's whoever they get a better deal on. But I do see him moving one. My theory is it's Maddison, and that's why he's not playing. But who knows? I've not read that anywhere. It's purely one of those gut feelings that he's on the move. Hopefully to Newcastle, but I don't think it would be. But yeah, they're another roller coaster team. I think that's this whole mid-table. You can see them on a good day, and it's like, man, they could threaten for Europe. And you see them on a bad day, and it's like, man, they could be relegated. They're all over the map.
Yeah, Leicester sitting in 13th at 17 points, and they're 2 off of relegation. That's how tight
Yeah,
that
right.
mid to
13
bottom
down
table
is,
is.
well, outside of Southampton
Yeah.
is very tight.
Yeah. Moving on to Leeds, America's team, 2 draws the past 2 games, which, I mean, whatever. Like, it is what it was. They held
Yeah.
Newcastle scoreless. They held Miguel Almiron scoreless.
They
So
went
good for them.
into St. James's Park and got a draw as a
Yeah.
bottom third technically team. Can't ask for much more
Mm-hmm.
than that out of that match. They were frustrating as hell to play against. It was
They always
infuriating
are.
to
They're
play
always going to
against. And
be
then I
that.
watched them like 3 days later play West Ham, and I'm like, God, I love this team. They're so much fun. But they still don't know how to play with a lead.
They're the Richarlison of teams. Sorry.
That's probably pretty spot
on. He's on your team. You're a fan. You're loving it. You play against him. You want to kill him.
Yeah.
And that's Leeds. That's
yeah.
Leeds
They can't play with a lead, which worries me. But a lot of bottom half teams don't have leads often, so maybe Leeds will be okay not playing well with the lead too often if their only goal is to not get relegated, which at this point they won't. I don't think.
Yeah, Leeds has scored 25 goals, and the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams have all scored less than 20. So it's their defense that's the problem in holding leads, like you just said. Let's move on to Nottingham Forest, and then Bournemouth is after that. 2 teams recently promoted, kind of having similar seasons. They're like, oh, they're really bad. Oh, they drew somebody. Oh, they're really bad. Oh, maybe they won. Let's talk Nottingham Forest first. They're a draw and a win, so a pretty decent week.
Am I allowed to plead the fifth? I honestly, this is terrible. I don't know the last time I watched a Forest game. Yeah. It's probably when they played Newcastle. Like, it's just never a team I like choose to tune into. There's always a better game at that time slot that I managed to find. And it's like,
I get that
there's just nothing redeeming really about this team. There's nothing exciting about the team when I watch them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll plead the fifth on this one. They're not losing games. They got a draw against Chelsea, which is what you want to do.
You know who their leading scorer is?
Is it that guy they just signed from the Bundesliga that I can't pronounce his last name?
Can't pronounce his name.
It starts with an A.
Starts with an A.
Their club record.
There you go.
I know who he is. From Frankfurt, I believe. Maybe not Frankfurt, but he's club record signing. Yeah, actually, that's a little surprising that he is that high because he didn't. I think he's only played in.
Well, it's 4 goals,
but he's only probably played in, I want to say, like 12 of their matches or something, and they're sitting on 18. Yeah. So that's pretty impressive for him. But yeah, your leading scorer's got 4. That's going to lead to you being where you're at.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to Bournemouth. Yeah, honestly, I haven't watched Forest very much either, so I'm right there with you. Bournemouth has 2 wins in their last 7 games, both against Everton. So, hey, I mean, we've said it multiple times. If you're going to stay out of relegation zone, you got to beat other relegation teams. So good for Bournemouth for beating Everton. That wasn't these past 2 games, though. A loss versus Palace and a loss versus United.
They're 7-0 and 7-0 goal to concede.
They haven't scored a goal since before the World Cup.
7 cents. I think this is like probably my second favorite. No, this is probably my favorite to get relegated right now. If I had to pick one team to put all my chips in on, it's probably them.
Not Southampton?
I don't know. There's still enough.
You just think they'll figure something out?
On Southampton. Like I feel like there's a chance that they could figure it out. You could have James Ward-Prowse scores.
We'll talk about them when we get to Southampton. Actually, that was good on us. We got to control ourselves. Good job. High five. Woo. All right. 17th place, West Ham.
Start.
Go ahead and start talking about West Ham. So Dylan sent me a text. I don't even know when it was. I just started laughing my ass off. He goes, it was Thursday, December 29th at 12. Just lunchtime text. Rutrow, West Ham is poised to make a legit Big 6 push in the next few years. I was like, oh, what do you mean? And he's like, well, they're getting money and all that. And I'm like, dude, they're sitting in relegation zone, which they still are. I get what you're saying. Completely different. Like, their play right now isn't related to what you were referring to.
But
Yeah.
But
So
their play right now has me questioning all
yeah.
of that because they have righted the books a little bit. They've got a big investor in the last year.
Oh, that's what it was. That's why you thought so. They like
Yeah,
bounced their
they got the books
checkbooks.
balanced. They had a big investment last year, so like I do still think there is potential, but they gotta stay up first. And I don't think they're in a spot where they're going to spend a lot here in January, even though the books have been righted. It's more like, hey, let's stay alive and we'll spend in summer to improve the side. So and the side we've seen right now has shown me nothing. They have I think 15 goals on the year. Um, like
Yeah.
15 goals in 18 games, and they have spent money on Skamaka, spent money on Paqueta, and they can't score goals.
They were like a top 5
Yeah,
spender in the Premier League this summer.
so that's why
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about
You
Newcastle spending money because West Ham spent money and sucks. It's not just money.
Yeah. No, that's I mean you have Eddie
Right.
Howe though, so if you look at teams 11 through 20, West Ham is by far the best team out of those teams, which is weird that they're sitting 17th, but they are. Let's talk about Everton. Everton
So bad.
sucks. they
So
big
bad.
suck. I don't how they drew Man City. I watched the game and I have no idea, not a clue.
They're awful.
But they did, and Arsenal celebrated in the streets probably because of it, and rightfully so. I would have also. Everton,
Jordan Pickford gave up 3 goals relegated in 6 minutes. I love it. I love it. I should say, I love it. I love it.
Oh my god.
T-Rex.
And you know, he was screaming at anybody he caught eyes with. I mean, it's always somebody's fault, but Jordan Pickford.
So things that make me smile in soccer. Newcastle winning, Miguel Almiron scoring goals, and Pickford giving up goals. Like there's just now that Balotelli's like into the abyss. Like those are probably my 3 favorite things to see. And man, Everton they're bad. Like I would say they're probably would be my 3rd team I'd pick to be relegated. It'd probably be Bournemouth, Southampton, and Everton. At this point, we'll get into Wolves here in a second. I think their defense is probably good enough to keep them alive. I say that, and you look, I think they've actually given up more goals than Everton, but I think a couple of those were like fluky, like massive shellackings and stuff that they like a 5-0 here and a 4-0 there. And I don't really think they're they're that style of defense. I think they are a little bit better than that. But man, Everton is rough. Damari Gray is the only attacking player worth absolutely anything on that side, and he's not good enough to carry an attack for Everton by any means.
He's not Richarlison, baby. Let's talk Wolves. You kind of hinted at it. The team they can't score. You know, we said on last week's episode that they won a game, and it was like the first time they'd scored more than one, or the second time they'd scored more than one goal in a match. I mean,
and it was against Everton.
Dude, like it's watching paint dry when you watch Wolves.
They do play. They do play really sound defensively. Well, the last 2 months they have played really sound defensively. So that's why I do kind of give them the edge. I think there is enough raw talent in the forward positions to create goals somewhere. That's another reason I kind of have them above Everton, because they do have some talented attacking players where Everton has none. Mm-hmm. And I think Wolves has just as good, if not better, defense than Everton. So that's why I give the edge to Wolves. But man, they got to take some of that talent and start turning it into goals.
Dude, Wolves does not have a bad roster. That's what I'm saying. Their squad is not bad, and it's not bad offensively either. It's really not. If you look at the names,
and He-Chan and Nunez.
I mean, Traore barely even plays, but yeah, I mean, him with his pace. They've got Wang over there on the right, Diego Costa up top. I mean, it's like they have good players.
Ruben Neves has been I think he's been their leading scorer, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, I really
so do I. Nothing against him, but if that's your leading scorer, it's like
I was just giving a general.
There is talent moving the ball forward, and they just don't do anything with it. It's so frustrating. Like you said, it's like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
I don't watch enough of them to know if it's
what that normally means
or not, but it's got to be.
Yeah. That's
right.
I mean, you got to get. I feel like they just hired a new coach too, didn't they? At the start of this year or something. I feel like their coach is new, and it's not working. So that's enough on Wolves. I hate their uniforms also, by the way. They look like a CGI generated like team in a league full of like these classic badges and uniforms. That's a complete other subject though. Southampton, I don't think I've watched a Southampton game since Spurs beat them week 1. Honest to God, I don't think I have.
Yeah, they aren't very good. Just flat out, they're not very good. James Ward-Prowse and Shea Adams are like the only 2 redeeming qualities on the team, and Shea Adams will disappear for 8 games at a time, then score 4 goals in 2 games, right. And then Salisu's all right too.
He's had some stinkers.
Like, yeah, there's not a whole lot there. I started to tease why I think they may be able to stay up, and it's purely James Ward-Prowse's free kicks, as stupid as that sounds. But we saw him go on a tear last year. I believe he ended up setting the Premier League record last year for most free kicks.
You have SofaScore pulled up, Dylan? Okay. All right. I'll put his season heat map up on. Sorry to interrupt you. I'll put his season heat map up on the screen. Literally every sinpart of the pitch is covered in at least yellow.
He's being asked to do.
He is that team. He's that team.
So part one question that could come up. I haven't heard rumors of this, but do you just cut bait with him and go, take our money, let's get relegated, we'll come back up next year? Like, just because they have looked so bad. I don't know. Maybe you do that because you can get more for him right now than you could in June if you do get relegated. I don't know what his contract looks like. This is all like speculation that just popped into my head as we were talking about them. But they've looked that kind of bad that do you almost concede being relegated to start working on the bankroll to get promoted back again? Because he's not playing in the championship. Like, he's just too good to play in the championship. So maybe you just try and get more money while you can.
Yeah, that's something we can absolutely discuss on our transfer podcast, which is coming up next week, I guess. Guys, we're ending it here. That's all from the Premier League this week. We appreciate you guys listening, as always. I think this was fun. I think it was energetic.
I talked really fast.
It was pretty good.
People got to play it in 3/4 speed when I'm talking on this one.
Yeah, slow down if you need to. So, it was a good episode, though. We appreciate y'all listening, as always. Go check out all our other videos. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and all of the above. So we'll talk to y'all next time.